So in this video, I'm going to show you the LinkedIn lead generation process that will allow you to add 50 to 100K per month to your service-based business in 2026. And this is the exact process that I used to grow my agency from literally 10 to 20K profit a month at the start of this year, all the way up to 50 to 60 to 70 to 80 to 90 and 100K profit months. So this is for the person who's struggling to make LinkedIn work right now, and they might be stuck in the activity trap. They're trying to do all of these old things, right? They're trying to get stuff that I call this like the LinkedIn old way, right? This is like the stuff that we sort of believe will help us to get a result, but like it doesn't really work. So you might be stuck in the activity track. You're going to be doing a lot of random posting. And it's going to feel like a lot of the time, like, you know, like you're shouting into the void. And there's so many operators I speak to who are feeling this way. You know, they see a couple of things from gurus online saying, hey, you know what, you've got to post this post on Monday, which is a growth post, this post on Tuesday, this post on Wednesday. And they're taking all of this free advice, but nothing is compounding into anything that resembles, you know, this predictable LinkedIn lead generation process. They're also stuck doing that even when they don't get, you know, like those inbound leads from content. They're stuck doing hope-based outreach. Like it's like they're showing up and knocking on like 1,000 doors a month on LinkedIn to random prospects who might not even be able to afford their services, just sending out spray and pray. It's like the equivalent of showing up to somebody's door with some suits and going, hey, like, do you want to buy one? You're completely unwelcomed. You look like a dime dozen. You don't differentiate from anybody, and you get stuck then not getting any responses and ultimately hitting that burnout because you can only do so much of this per day. And that leads us to the point where we get revenue plateaus, and that leads to, you know, like spending hours of time, like, you know, like manually sending DMs, as I've said. And that then leads us to having and missing out on so many different leads because there's no accurate follow-up system. So even after somebody have sent out all of these like messages, for the people that sort of like, you know, respond at the first message, which has got to be a tiny fraction of the people in the market, in B2B sales, most of our actual responses are going to become beyond, you know, like 4 to 6 follow-ups. They've got no way to track that, no way to make sure that that happens. So they lose so many of those leads that they could have had through the cracks. And as I've said, it's also the way in which you're doing that messaging as well. You cannot expect in 2025, moving into 2026, to build a list of your ideal prospects who you feel are your right fit. Let's say, I don't know, like I'm a founder and I'm targeting niche specific agencies between 1 to 5 million. I cannot expect that if I build a list of 1,000 of these people and I just randomly send messages to them saying, hey, look, I saw, you know, like it could just be as simple as like, hey, you know, we help you to build a predictable pipeline, and we do that through the means of content. We help X person to do this with this X solution in X amount of time. There is no fucking way I can expect that any of these people will reach out to me. It's almost like slot. It's like, and then there's the element of like, you know, you see everybody like leveraging personalization as well, but still doing spray and play, and personalization for personalization's sake. Again, completely the same. Spray and pray messaging. It does not work because your prospects don't like you and they don't trust you. The old way as well, you're probably at this point, your pipeline is being run on hope because you've been told a lie by the gurus on LinkedIn and maybe some other people as well on Instagram that, you know, you've got to be going viral. You need to be generating as much eyes on your profile to actually generate business. Complete bollocks. You need to have that real strategy instead. So what is the better way to do this? And if you want to find out the better way, I share the better way to scale your business to an additional 50 to 100K per month with nothing but AI and LinkedIn. Make sure that if you're watching this to subscribe to my LinkedIn channel now. And I release weekly videos and daily shorts on how you can scale your business profitably and leanly in the age of AI. So you can go and hit the subscribe button. I think it might be somewhere here. So what is the new way of going about scaling a predictable LinkedIn lead generation process in 2026? It comprised of 3 simple systems We need a relevant first content engine. We need to create the right founder content that positions you as an expert that the people that are like you're trying to sell to, they feel that you can solve their problems. And that helps to attract the warm prospects directly to you. Because we're living in an age now where buyers are not just coming from, hey, like building trust. That's what sales used to be about. You enter a buying process and you build trust. Now they're coming from distrust all the way up to neutral, to the fact of when they're actually ready to work with you, you need to fill in with your content and even into your sales process, that final bit where when they trust you, then they're going to reach out. And content, it allows you to do that, because I call this bridging the trust gap between, where they are right now, which is, all of their pains and their problems and like their shitty predicted future, and their dream reality. Where do they want to go? And this gap between that point is what your content should ultimately solve for. But the biggest problem about this is, up until this point, like we've only really been able to do this manually with, like something with writing ourselves on LinkedIn, sitting down to write it, taking hours of the day to actually create something like this. And if you're a founder, you don't have time for that. That's completely irrelevant to you at the end of the day. And even if you try ChatGPT to build your own GPT, or you've used it, it never quite feels like you, and you won't with AI slop. It has to actually be written in a certain way to sell people on your big ideas, to sell via insight, not just how to. So when they read it, they think, hey, this person understands my unique world and experiences. They understand my unique challenges. I can understand that I'm really, by reading this, I'm bought into their sort of lexicon, and I'm sort of indoctrinated into their belief system. And it's really showing me like I've got this definitive driving how of like, how is this person going to help me through reading my content? That's how you actually get a machine that allows you to get leverage on this in like literally in writing a week of content in less than 30 minutes a week. And that bridges that first part. The first part of this is actually getting, the initial trust. And that's how you initially start to get towards this. Next, we need the smart targeting and automation. We need to reach the right people at the right time. It is no longer enough now to actually just like send out random messages. We need to contact with something called personalization and intent. Personalization is that element of show me you know me. Like somebody's reaching out to me, you need to show that you've actually done some research on them to show how your offer is relevant to them and the right timing for them to potentially act. Otherwise, it's gonna get ignored. It's like, for example, the analogy I'd give is, it's like me knocking on somebody's door and going, hey, do you want to buy this fire extinguisher? And they're like, nah. I didn't have a fire going on. But if I find the one house or two houses or 5 houses in a city which are on fire, and I knock on their door and I go, hey, do you want to buy a fire extinguisher? They're going to bite my hand off. They're going to pay whatever to buy that fire extinguisher, because it's about the timing. And that is the number one reason why we need the right sort of personalization and the right sort of intent there to get to that point. Because intent is like what could be going on for them that will make them more likely to act as it stands. Now, the final part of the new way is we're no longer relying, if we're a service-based business, on referrals. We're no longer praying each and every month and quarter if like Daniel from down the road, or like Daniel, who's been our anchor client for 3 to 5 years, is going to lovingly send us another referral. Fuck no, we're not doing that. Because when you scale your business like that, you're literally building your business on hope. It is completely like ridiculous to expect to scale your business like that. There are excellent accompaniments to what you've got, but you need to have a systemized and predictable pipeline so you can book calls even while you sleep and even while you don't prospect. Because that is the only way in 2026 that you're going to build a leverage service-based business where you can get towards these 50 to 100K added months using LinkedIn and AI with literally out adding expensive headcount and just using smart tools to get there. So how do we get people to this point? And I break this down into really 3 simple super, super simple. Positioning comes down to these three following things. We need to define who your exact dream Rainmaker client profile is. And why do we need to do that? Because like, if you don't know who you're contacting, right? How can we ever make the right content and the right outbound messaging to get the right people on calls? It's basically impossible. But also as well, a Rainmaker client is not just an ICP. This is you working out and you lining up, like, let's say like 5 of your best clients who you all got amazing results for. And we work out what are the 20% of your clients that paid you 80% of your revenue who you genuinely fucking love working with. That's your Rainmaker client. And we do that by scraping lists from Sales Navigator. We do that by interviewing your current clients, like working out like what made you buy, what almost made you not buy, what did you think you were buying, what was the number one benefit of using your service, what was an unexpected benefit of using your service. And then once we've done that, we can build a really accurate depiction, this Rainmaker ideal client persona, or people would call this a focus ICP. And then from that point, everything we do is going to be around that. And we will build an offer for that exact ideal client persona based on how they want to buy, based on what they want to see to be convinced. Then we will write that, that content on your LinkedIn profile. I call it category leader positioning. And we're going to take all of what we found here and we're going to position that as authority signals on your profile. So when somebody lands on your profile, it's written in the exact wording that they care about, and it's written with the exact desires that they want the most. And they're going to feel like and read this and be like, hey, this person literally gets me. I feel like, I don't know, like Luke is written this for me. It's like he's reading my mind. That's what happens when you really dial in category leader positioning. And then what we then also need is add conversation triggers in the headline and the bio. Like, maybe I can pull up an example of this real quick just to show you like what this looks like. And this is absolutely critical for making sure that you have that initial positioning in place. So every single piece of my profile is formatting like a high performance landing page, and every single, I believe, week, I'm getting thousands and thousands of views to this. And I'd say about 20% of those to 30% are my ideal client persona, which means when somebody lands on my page, it's going to look something like this, the buyer journey. They need to come to my profile. I need to answer these 3 simple questions. Who am I serving? What am I going to provide that client? And how am I going to get them there? So straight away, they're seeing this on my profile. How fast could you grow if you cloned yourself? That's a compelling question, a way that you could spark their interest. Now you can with an AI-powered growth system that books calls where you coach, consult, or lead. Who I'm targeting? People that coach or consult or lead. What I'm going to provide them? AI-powered growth systems. And thirdly, how I get them there. Basically, AI-powered growth systems and helping them to scale. They come across to those authority points that I've leaned on from my hyper-focused ideal client persona, that Rainmaker client persona that I spoke about on the previous piece. And then I'm going to give them a quick one-liner to answer those again, drive them down onto my profile, and then I'm suggesting them to book a call with me, or I'm attaching a booking profile link here and maybe a lead magnet to really get them into their funnel. So once I do that, I have everything I need to take, the traffic that I'm going to get from my strategic content engine that we spoke about here, this relevance-first content engine that's only going to take us 30 minutes of our time a week to activate. And we're going to actually be able to capture that demand, because if you don't do that, then it's just going to be a waste of time and you're not going to get any leads. Next, we need to build a strategic relevance-first content engine. And it's composed of the 3 really simple separate segments. And it's composed of a mapped content calendar. Because if you just show up and create content, it's literally like the way that I will conceptualize this with clients is if we don't have a posting and a content strategy behind our content, and somebody comes to me and says, hey, I just haven't been able to get LinkedIn to work. It's literally the equivalent of trying to fire arrows, but without knowing where your target is, right? Because certain posts will bring your audience closer to being indoctrinated into your way of thinking and trusting you and ultimately reaching out. And if we don't plan that segment of posts to get them there, we have no way of predictively getting those people on calls and predictably bridging that trust gap that I spoke about and actually, getting them in our pipeline and closing business. Next, it's composed of pain point focused messaging. And this is super simple because, like, at the end of the day, like, I'm sure you've heard the phrase, people don't buy based on logic, they buy based on emotion, and then they're going to back up with logic, right? So we need to really dial into that FUD. I remember my sales, you always used to go like, hey, you need to dial up the fudge, which I think is like fear, uncertainty, doubt, basically. So we need to really play on that in our content. And when we actually have done our research and, we've knocked up like 5 of those clients, we work out what the pain points they had when they came to us, what made them buy, what almost made them not buy. We have that in their own words. Now we've got this brilliant fucking rope to dial in the content or the topics of that content into stuff that we know is playing at the back of the client's mind. Fear, uncertainty, and the doubt. The things that are standing in the way of where they are now and their desired future. The gap we need to bridge, the trust gap, to convert. So when we do that, like, we're literally just going to do some call outs, and it could just be super simple like this. If I come to my LinkedIn profile, 90% of our LinkedIn content comes through content. So this again is pain focused. Like, a lot of the founders I speak to have no way of generating content, right? Generating pipeline with their content. And I'm saying that, like, I can actually solve this for them. And then I just go and break it down. Another way that you could do this is essentially a framework. You might take, hey, like, are you struggling to scale beyond referrals? And then break down the pain and start the mechanism that solves it. For example, another way that you could potentially use is old way versus new way. You want to show like an old practice that they may be doing in the market, like potentially like the old way of business is, you do good work for people. You then hit a point where, like, you can't scale above your referrals. And then ultimately you get stuck. You get stuck like 1 to 2, 5 million in revenue. You can't go beyond that point. And then the new way is, that AI demand engine that actually allows somebody to scale their time beyond their referrals, even though they're an expert and they don't have that much time, to show them that there's a better way. Now, there's multiple ways we can chop and change this. You could do Mythbusters, the pitch, lead magnet giveaways, storytelling, but ultimately it has to be pain point focused in order for this to ultimately convert. Now, the biggest thing here is AI assisted writing. Like, don't think of this like, AI taking away like your authentic voice. It's about gaining leverage into the activities that are ultimately going to provide you the most impact. So if somebody usually spends, like an hour or 2 hours perfecting LinkedIn posts, and then I come in and like I build you a machine, or you build yourself a machine where you can do like a week of content in 30 minutes, and then you can then scale that out to a month, and you can spend more time on those high leverage activities like the sales process or delivery. Who grows faster? The person who like is stuck in that like manual activity trap, doing stuff for the sake of fucking doing it, or is the person who has the leverage of AI assisted writing programmed in the right way going to actually get to that point? So we need that in place, and that allows you to create that right sort of content. And this is probably going to absolutely like blow some people's brains, but for literally the last 6 to 8 months, every single one of my pieces of content has literally more or less either been touched by AI in like the main editing process or completely written by AI. And I've been able to do that because I've been able to program a GPT on my exact consulting brain and profile from my last 950 posts that I have written. So it knows me more than I know me. And it ultimately took me from a place where I was spending like an hour every single day writing my content to now drafting like content, 30 minutes. To do a week of content, and it performs the same, if not better. And you know what I did with that spare time? It took our business from literally doing like 10 to 20K profit a month and being capped at that spot for 2 years to scaling beyond that and hitting like consecutive 50, 60, 70, 80, and even 100K months in the last 4 months, where we closed off $270,000 worth of profit. And none of that would have happened without having the right system to actually scale. And that is one thing I always recommend to our clients. And that maybe I can even give you another example here. Like one of our clients, Joy Das, we took her from a spot where she was writing every single thing on the weekend. And she was capped out like about 150K as it stands before she worked with us. And when she actually implemented the AI demand engine and one of the specifics of this, like this actual engine, and having the right sort of content that was dialed into her Rainmaker client persona, she was able to actually take her writing down from literally spending hours on the weekend to now she gets it done in 30 minutes. And in fact, now she even like has some of her team members to help her to actually put this together. That allowed her to go from never being able to generate inbound leads to generating inbound leads in literally a week. And Joy has actually done about $200,000 from LinkedIn, and I'll show you the receipts in a second, from this system itself. So the results here, when you get it right, it can literally be explosive in a short amount of time as well. Think weeks and days, not months and years. Now, the final piece of this, as it stands, is an automated pipeline. Like, you need to have a means to predictably get the right sort of people on calls as it stands. And it should not rely on your manual inputs of being in your DMs every day, sending out pitch slaps, sending out messages, working DMs to get there. That's the activity track. That's gone. That's 2025. Like, if you want to be like the people that go, hey, like, I want to be authentic. I want to just be me in the DMs and then stay broke. Like, this maybe isn't for you. But I think if you watch this far, like, you're serious about gaining leverage and you're serious about gaining an unfair advantage in 2026. And all of the killers are using Automate Pipeline. All of our best clients. We run personalized, multi-touch outreach sequences. Once we've actually, gained engagement on LinkedIn, so let's say, let's use Joy as for an example, as evidence. Like, Joy's getting 72 to 105 connections from this. And that's the value of the content, right? It acts like as a magnet, which allows you to attract, the right connections, the right likes, the right comments, the right views to you on LinkedIn. And these aren't people that are fucking randomers on the internet. They know you. That trust gap is already closed because they've been nurtured and sold on how you can overcome their fears, their doubts, their uncertainties with the content itself. If you leave it like that, you can never get them, right? Which is probably why you're not booking as much pipeline as you want from LinkedIn. That's why content is no longer the thing that is enough for you to convert. You need to go out there. You need to have this automated pipeline mechanism to get them there. So we can then take those as it stands and leverage a tool, like an AI SDR, to then scrape the likes and comments of these as it stands, to then sort this by the ideal client persona in regards to high, medium, and low fit. As it stands, that allows us to then send personalized outreach, multi-touch, to each of the people that have engaged with your content who are more likely to book a meeting with you. These are the hottest prospects you're going to get. So, and this allows us to have these incidences where for Joy, I believe this is Joy's inbox. Yeah, she had, with the right sort of AI sales rep in her inbox that had been trained on her tone and in her voice, 303 leads in 1 month alone. And that correlated to her last month, I believe 40 to 50 meetings. And she cash collected, as it stands, last quarter. It was something ridiculous. It was literally in that quarter, she did 200K in a quarter doing this. So the results, when you have the automated system that allows you to contact from your strategic content engine, this can literally be an absolute game changer. But then you literally need to automate your call booking and follow-ups and nurture loops. And the only way that you can really do that is by having the right sort of solution that allows you to capture that demand. And that only comes from having a Calendly, which actually has, the right sort of questions, because not everybody coming onto your link is going to be qualified, right? So you need to ask the right sort of questions that when they do reach you, you can review the call booking link and go, hey, this is worth my time. Because the one thing that you're going to be struggling with using a system like this, it's not how many leads I'm going to get. It's how do I sort through the critical through from the trivial many? Because you're going to have too much to get through. And that is why you need the right leads in your lead list, but also the right filtering to make sure that, you're spending time with the right people and you get the right at-bats. That's basically it. And of course, like attract the pipeline, so first touch to book call. And if you actually have these three things, it basically is the AI demand engine, this process to add this additional 50 to 100K per month from LinkedIn. The results can be absolutely wild. And as I've said, like we've had people generate, 50K in 60 days using this system as it stands, a multiple 100K worth of pipeline. Joya generated $200,000 in a quarter with this system as it stands. Like we've got the receipts. This like it's crazy. We have one person do 31K like cash collected like in just like 1 week. Actually 39K as it stands. And for us personally and others, it's doing 40 to 50 meetings per month, sales qualified. And for one of our other MMA clients, they were able to drive $740,000 in deal flow from LinkedIn as it stands at the moment. Perhaps the biggest, I feel like, evidence of all of this is the showcase us for ourselves is the fact that we literally went from, this is the way in which we literally were able to close like $270,000 like of cash collected in the last 4 months. And it was literally through this exact same system on my profile and on one of my team's profiles in 30 minutes a day. That is literally wild. And the tech stack that runs it all is pretty simple. All you need to run this is LinkedIn Sales Navigator. And this is where we're going to source a lot of our leads. We could also use something like Blue Ocean IO to actually get like a list of the right sort of leads in there. So, like we're only contacting the right people and lookalikes from your best clients. We're then going to use ChatGPT to build the AI content engine as it stands. But anybody can go and get OpenAI or Claude or whatever. It's more or less based on the actual data you feed it. So I've got like a database of, after doing this over the last 4 years and working with over 100 plus clients, I make sure that our GPTs are trained on that knowledge bank. So it's pulling all of that top performing content in there as well. And we use some automation tools as well to automate the pipeline. So we might use a tool like, like Valley in order to sort of train that AI SDR as it stands. We can use something like Beehive to actually like propagate that, like some of the content on our newsletter list. And we also use like something like ClickUp to sort of manage the flow of like when we onboard and clients, etc. And that's really it. Like there really is not much else here as it stands. And it is literally that simple in 2026 that you can build a highly leveraged business with nothing but AI and a LinkedIn profile and add in order to add, 50 to 100K per month. Now, if you got some value from this video, make sure you hit subscribe. You're going to get weekly videos on how to scale your service-based business with nothing but AI and LinkedIn in the age of AI. And if you want the full system here, make sure to comment blueprint, and I'm going to show you and send you a roadmap of this entire system. Or if you'd like and be interested in how we can build this out for your business, make sure that you book a strategy call from the link in our YouTube description.